of shoes you're wearing.
That'll work.
No,
Okay, the meeting will come to order. Do we have any public comment? Sadly, we remember John Shaw, who passed away, our neighbor.
John did? Johnny passed away today,
Laura's father?
No, it was Sunday.
Sunday.
God, I grew up with John.
He's a good
He
guy.
used to come to school and all he had to wear was a bathrobe. No shoes, no nothing. 'Cause their house didn't have floors. They slept in the dirt.
Okay, minutes of previous meetings. Motion to accept?
Motion. Yes.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any exemptions?
I did not prepare any. I will work with Rosa and see if we need to dust any up after the election and such. And it may be we need to name Rosa a 20D exemption. The position's already taken care of with that exemption, but she's elected to town clerk, so I don't think there's a problem. We'll look into it, but none today.
Okay. Well, reorganization, we better wait till Patricia comes.
She is in the building right now. Her car's out there.
And I guess we better wait for the time change. License fees, Rosa.
Last year in August, we did, the board voted to change the dog fees and all that good stuff, and for the first time established a late fee, which would, under the current board vote, begin June 1st. Well, nobody knew last year that there was going to be a new town clerk and all this good stuff going on. And in the future, I would be sending out reminders and so forth, because that's pretty much what it does. So what I was going to ask the board was for this year, only this calendar year, because this is brand new. We advertised it last September when it went into effect. No one's going to remember. And I think with all the transition going on, to anyone that comes in after June 1st with a $10 late fee per license is not going to make for good business. So I was going to request that the board for this year only, just for 2014, to move the date up from June 1st to July 1st, and I can do a lot of publicizing and trying to contact people to get them in. I issued 4 licenses today, and I know of at least 2 more that I'll be doing on Thursday. So some people are getting in before the original deadline, but a lot of people really aren't aware of it, and I just think it would be nice when it's the first time just to give them that extra month and be really vigilant on my behalf of nudging them towards getting the license. If they can't do it by July 1st, then they're going to have to pay. But then it would go, there would be plenty of time to make everybody familiar with the late fee for next year. Jeanette never wanted to do it, and then last year she finally said, sure. But it wasn't going to go into effect till this year. Everybody's used to March 1st. It's always been March 1st. I don't want to change that part. I just think because it's all new to everybody and we have this big transition going on with everything else, it might be nice. I will gladly quickly repeat that before Thursday, so she can hear it if she's here, so she better.
What I thought was they should give her, like they did in March, it's January and February, the end of March, you were late. You sent out a late notice. And then after that, they started getting fines.
It's not really.
That's what supported us.
It's not really.
I think for now, let's just do it for a month.
Because we can always, if that's something that they want to do, that can be
It was
approached
5 minutes
in the
past 6
fall.
when I arrived.
Trying to get through the Zumba crowd?
Yeah,
Nobody had helped her?
well, they did, but you have to stop and say hello to everybody. Unfortunately, I went out without my glasses, even though I
I have mine if you want to try them. They're kind of strong.
well, they probably work, but I don't want to give you an eye infection.
I don't
Okay,
want an eye infection.
We're on license fees, changing the late date, advancing the late date to July 1st instead of having it effective June 1st.
Just for 2014.
Just
because
for
it's brand new.
2014.
Is there some special reason for that?
Because Rose is just taking over as town clerk, and she thinks a lot of people aren't aware
The bonus
of the late fee. And
Makes sense
she
to
wants
me.
to not start off on a bad foot.
It was voted last year in August, went into effect in September, but it wouldn't affect until this year's license fees.
Yeah.
And it was publicized at the time, but wasn't publicized in between, and nobody at that point knew that the town clerk would retire, so I
Do
just,
we have a motion?
No, we don't.
In that case, I'll move that we delay the deadline for licensing fees to the end of July.
To the 1st of July.
To the what?
1st of July.
To the 1st of
July.
July, just for this year,
Yes.
2014.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We need to reorganize.
We have people who have agreed to serve in the areas.
I agree to continue if you want me to. Unless one of you wants to.
I don't know, I was thinking it was my turn to take the chair, but
I think that for the last 3 or 4 years, we haven't been rotating it the way we always did before. Question is whether you want to start rotating it again or not.
I'm not hearing you very well. I'm sorry.
I said, for the past several years, we have not been rotating it the way we did before.
That's true.
And my question is, would people like to start rotating it again? Or would you prefer just to let people volunteer to do it? I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. I became chairman as soon as I was elected, and I have to say it was kind of a shock. So I don't think it's always a good idea to rotate, but I don't think it's a bad idea either. It gave me experience I would never have had otherwise.
You know, I kind of think it's a good idea to rotate, but I don't want to push it on this particular occasion. I mean, if,
Well, in that case, are you going to be really upset if you're not chair? No. Okay. Well, I move that we elect Nick chair and Dawn clerk.
Second.
The only one that didn't change was John.
No, that was clerk, so you're clerk.
I was clerk before.
Oh, I thought you were vice chair.
No, that was Nick. I should have nominated myself vice chair. You want to revise that?
I wrote it.
Okay, you're so
So
welcome.
it's Nick as chair, Dawn as clerk, you as vice chair, and Dawn, you seconded?
Yeah.
I'll make sure I have that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well then, Nick, I'll give this over to you.
okay.
So the next item is the future meeting.
It is indeed. Who has what to say about it?
I personally like 6 o'clock, because sometimes we go late, and I don't like getting home really late.
I don't much like getting home late, but I do like not having to be here quite so early, because it's very difficult to get dinner in time for me to get it down my throat and get here.
And I sort of think it's up to the folks, and if they prefer 7, it's 7. If they prefer 6 at 6.
There were a lot of people on the L that seemed to want 7. So I think we should at least try it. And whether we stay with it or not would depend on whether it makes any difference from my point of view.
Well, then, why don't we try it for the summer?
Okay.
And if the public is favorable, we'll go for it.
All right with you, Dawn?
That's a motion, I guess. A motion
In
to,
that case, I
we
move
should be
that-
specific about the end of the summer. What's a good time?
I move that between next meeting and Labor Day, our meetings be held at 7 o'clock.
Second. Any other discussion? Sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
Vote.
License fees.
We did that.
That's right, we did. Pioneer budget update.
It appears that Northfield turned the 9.6% increase down. I'm sorry, Berniston turned it down. Northfield voted it, but contingent upon an override. They've been waiting for Berniston's outcome. Now Northfield needs to hold an override, and if that passes, we will have the 9.6% budget, which passed in Leiden and Warwick, and subject to override in Northfield. I predict it'll be a while before we know what the school knows what the budget numbers are.
What was the contingency?
The contingency was that the increase to the Pioneer budget was based on an override, Prop 2.5 override in Northfield. They did not immediately schedule it though, because I guess if they were figuring if Berniston passed it, it wouldn't affect the district. 3 towns pass it, the budget's passed, and they would have just had their own internal problems funding it. But since Berniston turned it down, it's now 2 towns have voted for it. 3rd at Northfield is contingent on an override, and quite frankly, a general Prop 2.5 override to increase general government and education and highway department, et cetera, is a tough road to hoe in most communities, so we'll see. I can't envision the district asking for us to hold a special town meeting. I think they could go to a lower denominator number, as perhaps like last year, when 3 towns voted the 3.84%, or whatever it was. So that's the situation now.
Any other questions for anybody?
That answers my question about that, at least. I am curious about the current status of the technology.
At this point, something is being reviewed by a consultant, and I am personally not too convinced that it's gonna matter much unless the consultant has the starch to say, this ain't no plan.
Who is the consultant?
That has not been, it is not their 10-year consultant. They did not go to their in-house consultant they've had for the last 10 years. And the committee met with that consultant, the 2 Pioneer IT people, and some appropriate subcommittee of the school committee. And John Bradford and I attended from Warwick. I got a clear sense that our ideas were being honored, though they were not being agreed to. We were told that they're good ideas, but no commitment was made. The major thing I learned at that meeting was that the expenditure numbers were quote unquote budgetary, which apparently means they don't really mean anything.
That was pretty much what I got out of the last meeting.
So they're pretty good at reciting an inventory of their outdated equipment. And then they seem to fly a little bit loose in terms of what they're doing next. And my take was, you're buying hundreds and hundreds of Windows 8 computers. The original documentation is $740 a piece. They've now said, no, it's $700, but now they said, no, that's budgetary. And we spent half of this meeting listening to teachers who had packed the room talk about how much they want Google tablets, what are they called? Google Chromebooks. They want Chromebooks. Well, one of the things that this tech plan needs to review is the capacity to take on all of their clients' individual machines and support them on a network. I hope that's addressed. I came away with the sense that there will be a consensus about what is going on, and I came away with the sense that the superintendent's most pressing question was, if we follow these Warwick guys' ideas and spend less money, do we have to borrow less, and do we have to, leave funds on the table? And I was very forceful to say, no, that's not the case. If you're going to borrow, you do the job, but get the most mileage you can out of the job. So if we can replace twice as many computers with Chevys instead of Cadillacs, do it with the budget, and that'll mean that next year and the year after we have less ongoing contribution, because the landscape is $400,000, $380,000, whatever the current number is, it's in and around there for this initial project, and then $100,000 to $200,000 per year, every year thereafter for technology replacement. And we'd basically be front-loading the replacement and then putting off the payments until years 2 and 3 and 4, when we're also starting to pay money in the same time period. So,
That
yeah,
makes no
borrow
sense.
the money, we'll pay it back over the 4 or 5 years, but make it go as far as possible and spend it all on upgrading the network. Pretty serious disconnect on the concept of using the MBI fiber to interconnect all the schools as if it were one network. And there seems to have been a judgment made that that's just too expensive.
That makes no sense at all.
No, not when you haven't imputed the savings associated with lowering your administrative costs by not having to have Mike Holloway jump in a car and drive to Warwick or drive to Leiden when you
It's
connect it
all
as
right
one
there in
network,
one place, yeah.
you maintain one server, etc.
Yeah.
So, a lot of work yet, but I'm trusting in their good faith, and I have a sense of the kind of time constraints they're dealing with, because I'm feeling it myself on the Warwick School roof. You got till school starts next year to get this stuff done. So, I haven't seen the scope that the consultant has been given, and haven't seen anything beyond the last meeting. But I remain hopeful. And I can tell you that the other towns, Leiden and Bernardston especially, are very appreciative of what Warwick has done in terms of jumping into this, because it's kind of an emperor who has no clothes situation.
It definitely is.
Thank you. Pothole grant.
Okay, pothole grant is my nomenclature for the $34,000 that we got by formula for literally dealing with winter storm damaged roads, guardrails, etc. So the contract has been signed and returned to us, and the work plan is out there, and we got a notice to proceed today. The work is going to be concentrating on Northfield Road, but it will fill potholes and do a limited amount of paving from from the fountain to the junction of Northfield and Wendell Roads. For that section, the highway department's gonna rent a paving box and a small roller and haul the material and do that ourselves. We're gonna be doing patching of the rest of Northfield Road. If there's money left over, when that project is completed and other potholes are filled and tamped down, any remaining money will be applied to gravel roads in the form of, what is that favorite stuff Tim had? Regrind, which is doing a rather nice job staying on the road. Old Winchester Road is, the ditch lines are rough looking, but the road itself has survived the heavy rains. So that's $34,000 of found money, and a portion of it will be actually applied to the wage line of our highway workers while working on that project, which will extend our highway line. So that's all the report. I gave Larry the good news this morning. And a couple other related highway things. They got the pad poured for the steel building, which will hold all of the miscellaneous collections of signs and posts and highway department stuff that lines the walls of the,
Where's it gonna be located?
I don't know, I haven't been down there. Better place than originally conceived, more out of the way, possibly a little more secure. That'll allow us to start moving forward on the insulation project that Ted had done for this winter.
Thank you. Poll hearing, Gill Road.
All right, it's 2 poles on Gale Road, petitioned by National Grid. If we scheduled it, say, a month out, so what's 2 meetings from now is what, folks?
This coming Monday is going to be the 2nd, so
The 9th.
the 9th.
The 9th is the following Monday, the 2 Mondays.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get the notice out in time for that. I'm saying go 2 meetings out. That's my suggestion.
That would be the 16th.
23rd.
The 23rd.
Yeah, 23rd. So if we're starting at 7, poll hearing at 7:30? Makes sense.
Is there a motion? Poll hearing at 7:30.
So moved.
Make that Gale
Second.
Road just for the
For Gale
specificity.
Road on 6/23.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Fiber to Orange Road cell tower.
We finally got the order processed, and I signed off on it, and I don't know what the time frame will be. This network was completed January 1st, and the network operator, Axia, has spent from then till now chasing around hooking up people where the physical work had actually been completed. That didn't include either of Warwick's towers. At this point, the Mount Grace Tower has been provisioned, but I'm not lighting that up until the cell tower's lit up. We've got pretty good service from the Fitzwilliam connection, so in my mind, I'm thinking, you're gonna get our business when you're ready to take our business, not just take what you're ready for. So I signed that work order, let's say a week, 10 days ago. No idea how long it's gonna take. The fiber is all wrapped around on the nearest telephone pole, all the conduits in place, the pedestal, we don't have a shelter there, to accept the electronics is installed, everything's there. It looks like a 2-hour job to me, $5,700. But it will bring our customers on who connect to Warwick broadband through the cell tower up to parity with this portion of the system. So it's quite important. I figure I'll give them a couple more days before I start badgering them. 2 weeks, and then I'll start calling them every 3 days or something.
Thank you. Solar contract.
These are the guys that bought Pequod. Pequod are the guys that developed Adams Farm. We aren't getting the electricity. Soltis, the guys that bought our contract and bought that project as a way for the original developer to achieve financing, oversold to the project, sold our power to the city of Lowell. We're in continued negotiations. Here's what I finally got my head around. Our contract says we're buying kilowatt hours for 8.5 cents. But in fact, what shows up are net metering credits. Net metering credits are money. Basically, you're buying money. And so at this point, the question is, how much of a discount? Because we thought we were getting power for 8.5 cents without having to pay for distribution or transmission charges, as if the array were on our roof and it's feeding us. And we're told, well, that's not the way it works. Well, that seems to be the way our contract works, or is supposed to. Soltis has thus far offered us 25% discount on the net metering credits. So if $1,000 ends up on our credited on our meter, we would pay them $750 for it. Doesn't sound like a bad deal, but I think in order for us to be whole, that is to have the deal that we thought we were getting, the discount rate is going to have to be higher. So I'm continuing to negotiate with them, and I've got Russell Dupre has been reviewing this stuff with me. We're not alone. Peter Sam, Athol Y, Adams Farm, we're all the same. Adams Farm, projects on their land. Adams Farm, projects on their land, they've got the same problem we do. The power's being sold elsewhere. So, try to settle it, and we had one executive session over it, continuing to try to work things out. The principal's threat of take this deal by the 15th of May, or we're going to assume that you're not interested, has come and gone, and I have reiterated that, yes, we are interested and we intend to enforce the terms of our contract.
In writing?
Have I submitted that to him in writing? Yes, I have. Yes. I think they don't want anybody looking into business practices. That's bad business. If you've contracted to sell this to you and then I sell it to Nick instead, that's wrong. And energy trading with municipalities has relaxed procurement standards because it's complicated, but it has serious reporting requirements. So every time we've made one of these deals, we have to notify, I can't remember who it is, frankly, the Inspector General's office or somebody. There's a whole lot of paper reporting to do. So that's kind of our lever, one of our pieces of leverage there. I think the fact that we're small and I can be very irritating is working on. We'll see what happens.
Roadside cleanup.
Do you expect Jim?
Sorry?
Do you expect Jim?
Yes.
Reading? Okay. All right. Miriam asked that we combine the ZBA appointment and the, help me out, what was the other one? And the wagon wheel.
The CBA appointment and the which?
The wagon wheel,
I don't even think, is the wagon wheel on here?
Zoning enforcement.
Zoning enforcement, okay. So if we can just, she's expecting the nominee here, but when you take this up, Mr. Chairman, if you can combine those two, get them out of here in good shape. Roadside cleanup, I think the report that went out was 2 mattresses light, because I got photographic evidence that the dumping grounds down on Hastings Heights Road, I believe that was 11 mattresses, and there were 2 more besides. So 13 mattresses, 10 TVs, 9 tires.
Whoa.
I don't know how many bags of rubbish, I don't know how much bottle and cans that went into the recycling stream, but that was the net of that day. I'm gonna prepare a bill for that dumper, and Shoes here, he could speak to, we don't have a name yet, on who to put on the bill, because you wanna let him talk about this, since I'm just repeating. Sure, you wanna describe what's going on? I don't,
Well, we filed charges on the guy, and it's gonna be up to the court now to whether the charges go through, so I can't give you a name.
So you've got a name for him.
Yeah, we've already charged it, but it's gonna be up to the court whether they see fit to let the charges go through. I will say that the roadside cleanup was a great idea, but that the majority of that stuff was on private property. Had we not caught this guy, the town would have been out this entire bill. I think in the future, roadside cleanup should be roadside cleanup, the things that the town is responsible for. Because, you know, unfortunately, if somebody dumps something on your property with a Tasman or tires or whatever, it's your problem. And if we start doing the cleanup for the homeowners, we're just gonna get buried. I mean, 11 mattresses, or 13 mattresses, at $40 a piece. That's, so, we've caught the guy, but it's completely up to the court now, what the charges are gonna go through.
Thank you. Anything else on that? Fuel bids update.
we did not get a fuel oil bid for the town of Warwick. So I didn't accept either the diesel or the fuel oil bid, and FERCog's gonna try again for those communities. And we're gonna try a faster turnaround. We believe that the 3 days from the time the bids were submitted to when they had to be accepted was an excessively long time in volatile fuel oils, and that resulted in companies not wanting to take any risk, to say, I'll give you oil for $3.79 next year, and they want to be able to have somebody say yes and nail the contract down today and not have 72 hours pass and have markets turn upside down. That's the theory. Worst that'll happen is we'll buy it on the spot market, shop around. But we've always, oh no, not always. One year I bought oil for $4 something and the price went down. But almost always we've done better with a bid locked in price than what the market's done.
Thank you. Zoning enforcement.
I just wanted to follow up that the building inspector's order to the campground to cease and desist an activity, a mobile home park that's a prohibited use, was answered by their attorney with an appeal to the ZBA for essentially a grandfathered, claiming that it's a grandfathered use. So I'm gonna be, the ZBA cannot solicit evidence. On behalf of the town, I'm going to spearhead collecting evidence. So one thing I've asked Ed as planning board chair and Rosa as town clerk to provide evidence of exactly when was the ban on mobile homes adopted by Warwick. This sort of thing, so we can get it on the record. The hearing, I believe, is scheduled for the 25th of June, 7 o'clock. And
Where?
here at the town hall, probably in this room, there are 3 uses of the town hall that night. If I can't work it out, one of them will have to move to the library. That'll all be well noticed. So that's the standing, anything to add?
I guess I do want to add something. By law, the zoning board of appeals can only rule on information that comes to it during a hearing. We cannot go out and do research, we cannot solicit research. And if no information comes that refutes what the lawyer says, which is that it's a non-conforming pre-existing use that was allowed earlier than the bylaws, if she can come up with evidence to that effect, and the town can't come up with anything to refute it, we can do nothing except uphold the appeal, which means we're saying that the building inspector is wrong. So I'm glad to see Dave taking the initiative to bring information to us.
Next, I don't even know what this is, sorry. Telephone, telegraph, electric distribution and transmission
Excuse me for a
property.
minute. If this is a public meeting, would you please speak to the public and not to your hand? I can't hear a word you're saying.
You have to speak up.
The next item on the agenda is telephone, telegraph, electric distribution and transmission property tax basis.
Some people have wanted to know what the pipeline might bring us in tax revenue. So the research I've done tells me that for the electrical lines in town and the high tension towers and the phone wires and all that stuff, the town gets about $45,000 a year. And that is an amount that has, the basis has been depreciated. Unlike your house, which is valuated at current market value, this sort of asset is valued initially by some Department of Revenue people whose job it is to do that and not much else. And then from that date forward, that asset gets depreciated. So based on what Kinder Morgan said, which was between 25 million in revenue to local taxing authorities. Is that right? If I remember that? Anyway, I divided it into about 3 miles, and not taking any account where the pumping stations are, because that'd be higher value located somewhere. It looks like about $30,000 in tax revenue per mile is the amount. And that would be initially, and then it would feather off, it would depreciate over time as our 1950s and 60s electrical infrastructure has, etc. So that's the upper range, I think, of a tax valuation in terms of what a pipeline would bring for local revenue.
CDBG,
HR stands for Housing Rehab. CDBG is Community Development Block Grant. A few weeks before town meeting, the Housing Authority contacted me and says the town want to go for another housing rehab grant. And I believe this board had said previously yes. I just want to get a fresh yes and an understanding that we're going to need to do some outreach to, I think there are 3 people from Warwick on the agency's waiting list right now for housing rehab. That's not the basis for a strong request for funding. So we're going to need to do some research. You've all been on the board long enough to remember the Community development strategy and some other documents we get to work on in the next few months. Is there consensus to move forward on that?
Chief Shoemaker.
Basically, the report I had for the board was covered in the illegal dumping, basically.
Mr. Chairman?
FERCog. Massachusetts in Motion grant support.
Nick, could I request we do the next item for ZBA appointments, since those folks are here, and this next one is kind of muddy. It might take a little while, might go fast, but Miriam and Sharon.
So we're going to do the ZBA appointment and then come right back to FERCog.
Thank you.
I've got no problem with it.
I
So,
move that we appoint Jim Beatty as the 5th member and second alternate to the ZBA.
Second.
any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. FERCog.
FERCog is looking for, they're looking for Warwick support on a Board of Health related grant where they are, I think you had this in your package. They're going to work on increasing access to farmers markets, increasing the proportion of healthy foods offered in community meals and food pantries, promoting, Rose, I'll give you this one. Promoting healthy design standards for proposed developments, promoting local complete streets policies, and providing guidance to towns on implementing projects. And they would sure like our support for this.
I move that we support it.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Nick, would you sign that and send it back to me so I can pass it to them?
Uh-huh.
It says Don, sign Nick instead. Yeah, you can have that. It's the last page.
Review fiscal year 15 draft appointment list.
My suggestion is that you do so during the next 2 weeks. And Rosa, it would be helpful to have the current appointment list, not just who's up, but everybody, as a way to cross-check for errors, because I've been here almost 7 years and we've never been able to do it without errors. We never will, but we can try to have fewer.
So you want me to
Yeah, if you
compile
could just-
current and send, email that out to everybody?
I would. I think it would help to see if we dropped anybody unintentionally or appointed anybody twice.
He's a quiet guy.
So it's the consensus that we put this over 2 weeks, right? Hello?
Can you say that again?
That's my recommendation.
Nick, you got to take your hand at it.
I'm sorry.
When you're talking, nobody can hear you. Rosa didn't hear what you just said.
I think he asked if there was a consensus to,
To put it over 2 weeks.
yeah, to review it, and, yeah, that's what it was review, it wasn't voting.
Okay. Ted, you're up. Ted, you're up. Joint letter to Secretary Sullivan and report on as of right solar development zone.
As you may recall, a while back, we had the 5 boards get together in a joint meeting and in some sort of a remarkable, weird thing. 5 boards unanimously agreed on something in one night. And that was that the south portion of the state forest should be forest reserved because of the Indian habitats. And it happens that that's where they want to put the pipeline. And it also looks like the pipeline might cut across the corner of the Black Gum lot that the town acquired because it's such a unique and wonderful resource. There aren't very many old growth black gum swamp stands around. So it was the planning board's thought that 5 boards should get together again and tell the Secretary of the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs to please use his influence to, if the pipeline goes through, there are many people that want it to go through. But if it does go through, this would be a backup position of please don't go across the conservation land or the state forest. The Conservation Commission and Open Space Committee have reviewed it and made their changes. The Planning Board has reviewed it, and the Town Forest Committee. I met with them and we went over it. So what you have, if you have a copy before you, is something less or different than what the original draft was that put together a month or so ago. It is our hope that the board will authorize the chair to sign it. And now maybe the chair is, it's not you anymore, Don? Okay, well.
But it was at the time of that meeting.
Well, it should be the current chair, because this is a new effort. It's not an insurmountable obstacle.
I move that the board authorize the chair to sign the document we've been presented with.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Wow, that took an hour.
So the 5 boards are the Concom, Open Space, Town Forest Committee, Planning Board, and Board of Selectmen?
You have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ted, should the recipient's name be changed?
Probably it should be his full name.
No, but he just took the job as Governor Deval Patrick's chief of staff, and I sent you an email as to who his replacement is.
Oh, I guess I'm not on his mailing list.
You gotta be political.
Okay,
Okay, I'll change the secretary
and the chair.
and the chair.
So it's,
And I will truck it around for the other signatures. I'll truck it around for signatures.
what is
Okay,
the secretary?
you're-
What is the secretary of what?
Environmental affairs.
Environmental affairs.
No, Secretary of the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, of Energy and Environmental Affairs.
Okay, so
OEEA.
Secretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs.
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be Secretary Sullivan, it's just whoever it is, it's that office, got it.
Your second item.
The 5-acre, the solar thing? Right, solar?
Solar development zoning.
The planning board received instructions to do a 5-acre solar to develop a zoning bylaw to allow 5 acres of by right solar on the Allen lot, which is the property where the transfer station is located. Over the years, that property has been managed on behalf of the town, although it's not a town forest. It's been managed by the town forest committee. I went before the town forest committee, and that was a lengthy process. We talked about it, and the problem is that the instructions from the select board were 5 acres. And I said, what 5 acres do you guys want? And they really couldn't specify a particular 5 acres in a way that it could be identified in the zoning to be specific to 5 acres. So that led to other discussions, and that led to more discussions. And finally, by the end of the evening, what the forestry committee, town forest committee recommended was that the whole lot be authorized as solar by right, with 100-foot setbacks on the south, which is by the town barn, and the house that's under 70 acres. And 100 feet from the road going down to the Gulf, no setbacks from the state land, which it borders to the north, and just a 25 or 50 feet from the boundary of the houses that are on Old Winchester Road. And the reason for that shallow setback is that the land goes up from Old Winchester Road, and the houses are on top or on the Old Winchester Road side of the hill, and then it drops down quite a bit to their back boundaries, which are a good distance behind the houses, so it wasn't felt that much of a boundary was needed there. So that's what I bring to you tonight, which is an expansion of the 5 acres you had originally directed. Is that okay? Or shall we move on that?
Do you need to take any action on that?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to take any action on it?
Well, we're the ones that called for it, so we should be the ones deciding.
Well, no, it's not an action item. The action item will be what we bring before the town meeting for zoning. But I don't want to bring something before the town meeting. I don't want the planning board to bring something before town meeting and have you guys stand up and shoot it down. I
So
want
this
to
is
make
just
sure that we're all on the same
informational.
page.
Well, we asked them to advise us.
Thank you.
Yes?
Ted, is my memory correct? Allen lot's 44 acres?
No, I think it's 190.
Okay. Whatever it is.
It's like 60 acres, I think.
So the total acreage is,
I think it's around, I don't have the lot card with me, but I think it's around 60 acres.
60?
60, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty good sized lot.
Huh.
It also includes the town barn,
And the dump.
and the dump and the transfer station, and it goes along the Gulf down to where the state land starts, which is right about at the corner where everybody, they're gonna go into the railing. How would that go?
Where does the 5 acre number come from?
Board of Selectmen.
I'm sorry?
Green communities, Nick.
Well,
minimum.
it's the green community requirement, but the request came from the select board.
Got it. So it's not a legal requirement from someplace else?
A minimum of 5 acres.
Yes,
It's a legal requirement.
Okay.
but the request came from the Board of Appeals. Now, the second question is, which came up in one of the discussions, I'm sure that you've thought about it, but some people might like to have the solar on their land for the money it brings. And I can understand why the town would prefer to get the rent for it, but some people might be annoyed that they didn't have a chance to get it. And I will tell you that they have a chance to get it, but they don't have a chance to get it by right. They could get it by a special permit.
So anybody who wants to put solar panels, lease solar panels to go in their roofs.
Oh, the roof thing, we're not talking about that, we're talking about
Talking
the
about farms.
We're talking about the solar
Solar
farm.
farms.
5 acres of solar panels, that kind of thing. The major industrial deal.
Our resource guy from DOER is the one who suggested you could put it on town lands, then that gives the town control over the development. And there's been a history where Warwick has wanted, basically very little that isn't agricultural residential to occur by right. It wants to review it through special permit or variance. This would allow us, this would be one of the two things we need to become a green community and get this grant funding. The other being adoption of the stretch code. This would allow the town to maintain control because the select board controls the town's land.
So it is zoning of right of the entire area to put in 5 acres of solar, right? That is
A minimum of 5 acres of solar farm.
what I'm asking is, can somebody put in 60 acres of solar?
Only with the select board's permission.
Yeah. I don't know if it requires a select board permission.
To use the land, they need a contract. Yeah, they might need the town meeting's permission if they want a contract for more than 3 years.
I don't know about that part of it. As far as the zoning part it's the town forest committee's position that that it would be easier if you just made the whole lot available. The chances of having a 60-acre solar array set up in Warwick is quite slim. There are a lot of solar arrays around, and none of them approach anything like that.
Right, but my question is,
May I answer your
what's
question?
the limit
It's
on?
really simple. It's really
sorry?
simple. This is a really simple development question, okay? The fact that you have zoning permission by right to do something does not supersede the owners of the land needing to grant permission. So you can have something zoned that no permit required, you can build Walmart on this site.
Right.
But if I own the land and I don't want to enter into a contract with Walmart to let them build on my land, they can't build on my land just because there's zoning that says that if I gave them the permission, they could build on my land without needing a permit. Okay? The rights of the ownership of the land reside with the town of Warwick. The fact that it's zoned for whatever is immaterial to the contract of whether the owner wants to permit that use. That's a commercial relationship. The commercial relationship is not being prescribed.
Well, My question is simple, I think, too, which is, if you zone of right, for solar of right 60 acres, does that mean you can put, that people have the right to put 60 acres of solar on that property?
Yes, from the point of view of zoning, yes.
It means the select board has the right to put 60 acres in solar panels on it,
To permit
to permit it.
a contract. But the selectmen can only tie the town for 3 years.
The,
The selectmen may only bind the town for 3 years. That's why when we entered into the contract with Seaboard Solar to be net metered host on a 20-year project, it took a vote of town meeting to bind the town, to allow the selectmen to sign a contract for more than 3 years. So ultimately, a project like this, I believe, would need to go to the town meeting for the land use contract. The zoning aspect of it, that would be, paved and ready to rock and roll. That's the whole thing about expedited permitting and zoning as of right. It doesn't take away the right of the owner not to sell their land or not to lease their land or not to permit it to be used. But it says that if that owner does want to do that thing that is permitted by zoning, that the developer, owner, etc., has an easier go of it to actually bring. He isn't like, okay, now I've got so and so the owner to sign
I understand all of that, but if
That's
we
a big
started
deal.
with the concept of 5 acres,
We did that, Nick, because the guy from the state said 5 acres is the minimum.
We had to have at least 5 acres.
So that's what we asked for, was the minimum, because we had this kind of discussion with you the last time Green Communities was discussed, and it died on the vine.
What's your problem? I don't understand.
my problem is, what is the top acreage that
There
can
is
be
no top.
actually put into solar here?
There
Is it 5
absolutely
acres
no-
or is it 60
there
acres?
is- There is absolutely no limit.
You could put 1,000,000 acres in if you
You
had it.
could, because what isn't gonna be allowed by right can be allowed by special permit. Now, presumably, some eyesore areas wouldn't get this special permit. But currently, in commercial Warwick is zoned residential farm. Any activity, any
Right.
commercial activity other than that requires a special permit. So a solar company can come in now and ask for a special permit.
Oh.
The problem with a special permit is that the zoning board of appeals can approve it with conditions, or deny it.
I understand that.
So what we have also on our zoning books is site plan review, where the presumption is that the project will be approved. I believe site plan approval qualifies as by right zoning. So that we've done all of the, when we had, some years ago, we had the zoning task force. And that was the site plan review. And this bylaw would allow it by right, by site plan review. On the town Allen lot. Now, if you want to limit that to 5 acres by right, then I would like the select board to clarify precisely what the 5 acres is. You can't just say 5 acres on the Allen lot, because that really isn't very, in zoning, we like to have clear, definitive areas.
Mr. Chair, since we are not voting on anything related to this at the moment, could we ask that you and Ted discuss this and come to an understanding about it
Uh,
outside of the meeting?
that sounds like a good idea, and put it over to what, 2 weeks from now?
Well, the planning board's trying to figure out how to move ahead, whether they've just been sent on a course by the select.
Well,
board,
let me
it's gonna double
put
down.
this another way. There is nothing in the zoning bylaws of Massachusetts that prohibits the select board from developing a zoning bylaw. And if you guys can't be in agreement as to what the criteria is that you want for your zoning bylaw, you can develop the zoning bylaw and bring it to the planning board. Usually, we develop it and bring it to you, but it doesn't make any difference. The Mass General laws allow it to work either way.
Nick, I think Dawn and I both understand that this is a perfectly legitimate and useful thing for the planning board to have done. So I don't want to spend any more time on it tonight. Do you? Really?
Anything you do,
We have
let's
other
not.
things to do.
Yeah, okay. If you see what my problem is,
I don't see what your problem is.
you don't see what my
No,
problem is.
I-
Well,
I'm very unsympathetic to your position, frankly.
yeah, okay. All right, I'll drop the concern.
Well, that moves us ahead rather quickly, doesn't it? Okay. So you guys are comfortable, let me go back to a modified proposal that we were bringing forward. And that would be the Allen lot with 100-foot buffers where the road goes through the Gulf, and on the south boundary, which is across by the school, and it's not the school, it would be about somewhere by the other side of the town barn, up that way.
It's really descriptive.
Okay, I want to make a motion then. Nick, I move that we put in the minutes that the sense of the board is that we accept and agree with the report of the planning board
And the town forest committee.
and the town forest committee.
Second. And we've discussed it ad nauseum, so, all those in favor? I think I'll abstain.
Well, we will be back again probably around December. And hopefully we will have a draft bylaw for you to look at. Check with us before that if you're interested.
Okay. Sorry I took so much time on that.
You guys have anything else? I'd like to, just one passing thought from the planning board. At our meeting recently, there was high praise for the way Dawn conducted the Kinder Morgan informational meeting. And far more information came across than other towns have received. And some of it was extremely interesting and quite helpful. So that, well done from the members of the planning board to you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Steve K., acceptance of performance contract. Model, I guess, I'm sorry. I guess we could make this easy. He and I discussed it at some length. He came up with what I wanted. He put it on paper. Here it is. It's ready to go. So if there aren't any questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize Steve to go ahead with trying to get this passed by all the towns.
Well, I think what he's looking for is a motion that this board sign on to versions.
Well, I certainly agree that this board should sign on.
Could I speak?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Steve would like to speak.
Steve, yes.
I also wanted to say that I met with Dawn and she was concerned about the legality of whether it was a legal document, and I wrote on top of all the documents that it's a draft proposal. It's not a legal document, and as we know, the legal beagles will get a hold of that hopefully sometime in the future, and then it will come back to the board, all of the towns that have it signed. But right now, it's just basically a letter of intent to support the draft proposal, the idea of it. So that's on top of all the signature page as well as the overview page as well as the actual document.
Steve, in the meantime, do you want this posted?
And thought about it, sure,
If you find some reason not to, let me know.
No, it'd be great if it was posted,
Okay.
I think. So I have the Town Energy Committee has signed off, you guys, if you sign off, I just came back from a meeting from Northfield, the Energy Board has signed off over in Northfield, and we're gonna talk to the Selectmen and the Finance Committee in the next week too. So,
Good work.
just update.
And thank
I
you.
think we have a motion and a second, and they're still okay. So,
Could you clarify the motion?
The motion is that the select board approve the draft proposal between the PBRSD and the district towns.
Second.
any other discussion?
What is Steve's last name?
Kirkowski.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And this is version 7?
So I made 4 copies, if you guys can choose one of the 4 clean copies between you. If Rosa has one, each of you have one, sign one of them.
Yeah.
Who has this on the computer?
I do.
Would you email it to Eddie, please?
Yeah.
And send one to Patricia, and then we'll use hers to sign.
Board member sign this?
Thank you.
I think that's his format, yeah, each board member sign. It's only 7 iterations, that's not bad.
Only 7 so far, so there's one, yeah.
I'm sure you can come up with more if you really want to.
I'm sure there'll be many more.
Could you give me his old news in there? I haven't memorized it, I've only used it once.
Okay, select board reports.
Yeah, easy. Yeah. Not much.
Nothing from Don.
Nothing from me. Do you have something?
Yeah, sort of. I got elected, as everybody knows, and it seems like it's time to go forward. We've got a lot of work, particularly to do on the pipeline, and we ought to be doing it with everybody putting all their back stuff that we've been mulling over in the last year to rest. And I know that Patricia has been critical of how I've been doing things, and I think she's right, and I want to apologize.
I don't think
And-
an apology is necessary, Nick. I take
Well,
that
you
with-
got it, whether you like it or not.
In that case, I'll accept it, thank you.
And I would sort of hope that the board as a group can come together with an apology to the fire department, because that was a year ago, but it was very disruptive. And I don't think there's been an apology forthcoming.
I don't think we owe the department an apology. I am sorry that they were upset, but I don't think any of us did anything to upset them. They just simply chose to take it that way.
I agree.
Well, that's too bad.
And I'm
So
sorry.
there is something we will have.
And I don't understand why it has
Left
to come
festering.
up forever and ever and ever.
This will be the last time I will bring it up. You're saying no. Thank you. Then I have nothing further. Coordinator report.
Nick, do you have the signed copy for Steve, before we lose track of that?
Yes,
Put
the date.
I'm sorry?
Just put the date.
Right.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anything else from the court?
Only thing is, looks like that USDA grant to pay for a portion of our new highway truck is actually gonna come through, and I have USDA scheduled for Friday the 6th to come to town, see the truck, pass paperwork around. They're talking $20,000. Tim started it, I finished it if it gets finished. And it will essentially mean that we'll get more mileage out of Chapter 90 money since we bought the truck. Chapter 90 money. It'll also mean that we'll get to reimburse ourselves for the plow, 6,000 and something that was on the town meeting warrant, so that capital stabilization will not take that hit. So, many's the slip between cup and lip, but I'm optimistic.
Well, it's good news if in fact it comes through.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
David, can I get a copy of that draft?
Yeah.
Please?